Hello, I am Tuomas, and this is my American wife, Jasmine.
Hey.
And we were in a long distance relationship for almost 4 years before Jasmine moved to Finland with me.
And in this video, we're going to go over some of the things we talked about together before making the final decision of if I was going to move to Finland or if Thomas was going to move to the US.
There are surprisingly many people who find it very inconceivable that someone would choose Finland over the US, but I think in the end for us it was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. A little more about us. We met online in 2015 through like Pokemon Showdown, a Pokemon simulator, and we started dating early 2017. During that time of dating, we both traveled to each other's countries and stayed for like a month to 2 months. During that time, like we spent like in each other's countries, we really used that time to consider, would we want to live here? But yeah, without further ado, let's get started on the factors that we talked about before deciding to move to Finland. The first factor was cost of living. I remember during one of our dates, Thomas and I, we would have a date on cooking like the same food, but like in our own spaces. And even then, the grocery shopping, this was back in, again, like 2017. The groceries in Finland were 2 times cheaper than the groceries in the US. We would buy the same exact thing, and I would spend literally 2 times more. And that's even considering the exchange rate between euros to US dollars. And after that, we kind of started looking, well, like, what is the cost of living like in Turku, where we live? How much are apartments there versus how much apartments are in the US? How much is it to buy a house in Finland versus buying a house in the US? Like, just those like little goals we would want to have in our future. How much would they cost in each country?
To give an example, Jasmine's rent for a 2-room apartment was about 1,400. You lived about 45 minutes away from DC. Closer to the city, it gets a lot more expensive.
Mm-hmm. And now like we own our apartment, but like what is the housing?
So for the bus ticket and the loan, we pay about 650.
And this is a 3-room apartment, and we live 20 minutes outside of Turku. As we say in the US, you get more bang for your buck out here.
The next topic we discussed was family and friends, and we got to a pretty decisive conclusion that I was a lot closer to my family and my friends in Finland than you were to yours in the US.
If you ask my grandma, she would tell you that like my whole life she thought I was going to move out of the country. Like, it's just something she assumed about me. And I think my dad also felt the same way. I don't think they ever saw me living a life in the US. I don't know why they felt that about me, but like it turns out their intuition was right, and which made my process so much easier when telling them like, hey, I want to move to Finland. They're like, yeah, go do it. And I'm like, bet, say less. Thank you for your support. And my friends, my friends already live like all around the US just because of friends from childhood and then college. And like we keep in touch like already based on like if something like big life moments happen, and like social media makes things a lot easier, and all my friends also have kids, so it just made more sense for me. I did have one of my friends come out last summer, and that was really great. It made me so happy. And I have family planning on coming out this winter, so let's see how that works out. But like my friends and family want to come visit me here. Like it's a good excuse for them to come travel and see Finland. So it's nice. With Thomas, like one thing we really talked about like was how often he would want to come see his family.
Oh yeah.
If he lived in the US. And I remember you were saying you wanted to come to Finland, what, twice a year?
something unrealistic like that.
Yeah, like twice a year for a month, and I was just like, yeah, we'll never be able to swing that like together. Just because of like vacation time in the US, we don't get as much as in Finland.
That kind of brings us to lifestyle in general. The US lifestyle is very much focused around work.
And then buying.
And buying, yeah. But you did have a pretty decent career going on. You were able to save a lot of money, but the other side of the coin there was that you worked a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I came to visit you, and the productivity requirements are very strict.
Yeah,
so
and very stressful.
Yeah, so just the whole work kind of culture is very, very different. So choosing the country is also like choosing how you want to live and work.
Yeah.
And well, now both of us are entrepreneurs. But even then, like, I feel like we get to have a lot of like free time when we need that.
Yeah. I think one really hard factor we had to consider was just our career opportunities. So in the US, like, I had a really good job. I was kind of in the process of being able to move up to a higher position in my job. It helped me save up money to move to Finland. But like, as Thomas was saying, like, I was just working the whole time. I had like really no life, and I was always stressed out, always just thinking about work. Like, in the US, we kind of like identify ourselves as our jobs. Like, if you meet people like, oh, hey, I'm such and such, like, this is what I do for a living. Like, you introduce your name and then like what you do. So while I had like better opportunities for progressing in my career, I knew that it would eventually then cost like my family life in the future. I feel like I had to choose either career or family.
I was still studying at the time when Jasmine moved. So we just simply couldn't have moved in together with that schedule. If I wanted to move to the US, because I just wasn't done with my studies. Also, in that sense, it made a lot more sense for you to come to Finland.
So that was the point that you were just starting out your master's and were working on your thesis to complete it.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, that was also the hardest part of moving to Finland, was I had to give up a lot of things that were like my lifestyle. I had to give up my income, which was good. I had to give up my car and just like the lifestyle of having a car, and just like a lot of independence. And I think that also was the hardest part of moving here, was that, yes, at first I had a lot of savings saved up to live here, but then by the time those savings ran out, Thomas got a job, thankfully. And it just, I wasn't independent anymore. And I was also going through a language program, so like I couldn't work and all these things. And now that I'm done with that, like, I was able to start my own business last year. But it took a long time. And I think that's probably the hardest part of being an immigrant, is like you have to rebuild your life over. You have to give up so much of like what you were used to in your lifestyle to rebuild your life in a new country. Thanks for taking care of me.
Yeah, we have very slowly been able to kind of rebuild the kind of living standard you were at. We started off at a very small apartment, 19 square meters, yksiö, really small.
We lived there for a year
and a half.
And a half.
But then we moved into a new place that's 4 times bigger. And we recently got a car. You're about to get your driver's license again, and
so yeah, it takes time definitely to rebuild that life, but that that was the biggest sacrifice of moving to Finland for me.
So we talked about who just would handle being immigrants better out of the two of us.
Surprise, it was me. I mean, like, I had high motivation to learn Finnish. Like, I wanted to understand that part of Tuomas more. And I liked the idea of living in Finland more than living in the US. Like, I remember my last year of living in the US, I literally, like, cried to you on the phone every day to get me out of the country. Like, it goes back to lifestyle. I didn't like the lifestyle in the US. I liked the lifestyle in Finland more. I liked the culture more. I could identify myself with the culture more, especially, like, the whole being quiet thing. In the US, I'm actually considered introverted. If you would ever believe that.
I would not. Well, actually, well, kinda. Yeah, I don't know.
I've also, like, lived in very stressful situations in my life, so I'm better at handling stress. When Thomas gets stressed out, he just shuts down completely. When I get stressed out, I'm like, all right, well, fuck, let's figure out how to do this.
Yeah, you're right. When it's you stress long before something happens. I stress when it happens.
Yeah.
We're like completely opposite in that regard.
And the immigration process is you're kind of always trying to figure out, like, someone said it really well. I wish I could remember the person who told me it, but being an immigrant is definitely a DIY, do-it-yourself lifestyle. Like, again, had to get rid of a lot of things, gave up a lot of things from my lifestyle in the US, and had to completely rebuild it from zero.
Then what we learned also is that the immigration process itself is just quite a bit simpler.
Or was a bit simpler. Like with the US, it's a much more extensive process. It costs a lot of money. It takes so long, and a lot of times people have to hire immigration lawyers, and I just didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
Whereas Finland's process was much more streamlined. It just seemed much more simple. Like, all we had to do was get married, and then I applied for residence permit off marriage ties, and that's it. Nowadays, I'm not so sure how the process is. I know the law on it is continuously changing.
But I think even then, like, if you're getting married, that's like by far the easiest way of getting the residence permit in Finland.
Of course, like, marriage should not be considered lightly. For us, marriage was also marriage is a commitment. And for us, like, moving abroad is a commitment too. So we chose to get married because, like, we are committed to each other. Still are committed to each other. And because we knew that I would have more safeties in place. Like, they couldn't just kick me out of the country for being married.
And last point, safety.
Yeah, life in Finland was and still is it feels way much safer than in the US. In the US, I was kind of always on guard. I worked in a nursing home, and we got trained on what to do if an active shooter came into the nursing home, and how to protect the patients and everything like that. And that for me was, like, very eye-opening and jarring at the same time. It was just like, we live in a society that we train people in a nursing home on this. And, like, of course, like, there's the unfortunate events of school shootings. Just shootings in general are very, very unfortunate. And just violence in general is higher in the US. You have to be a lot more aware of your surroundings all the time. Especially, like, in big cities like DC. I remember when Tuomas came out to visit and we were in DC, he's just like, la da 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 da. And I'm like, boy, if you don't be aware of your surroundings, it's just stressful because you have to be aware of these things all the time. Or it feels like you have to be aware of these things all the time.
Felt like when I was visiting the US, the subject of shootings is kind of like almost a topic of small talk, a little bit like poisonous or venomous animals in Australia. That's how desensitized it's gotten there. Also, a funny little story, or not so funny. When I was in the US for 2 months, I didn't really watch TV. One time I watched TV and there was breaking news, a shooting in a store in El Paso, Texas. So it just goes to show what are the odds. Clearly a lot bigger than zero.
And like as an American, it's really sad to even talk and think about these things. Like school shootings is a very like sad subject for us. And shootings in general are very like we are desensitized, but they're very honkala. Sorry. Like it's hard as an American abroad because like I don't want to talk shit about the US. I don't want to hear others talk shit about the US really, but like sometimes it's true self and it's hard because you don't know how to really handle it, and all you can do is just kind of mourn for your country as best as I can say it. Sorry, got a little prezi there.
But you understand that, you know, if your choices are to live in that or to leave that behind.
I left it behind easily in a heartbeat. And like Finland, it's much more safer. Yeah, like Finland has its own, like, not every country has its own problems. Finland has like alcohol issues that are sometimes like scary to be around.
Finland has its problems, but
they're not as big as the US is.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna cry over here.
If you're wondering if you wanna move to Finland or US or whatever country you're from, Finland. At least that was our conclusion, so now you know why.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it was more than just because Finland's the happiest country in the world. Like, for me, it was more of, I really just liked the lifestyle here. I liked how connected to nature Finns are. Vacation mode here. There's a lot of things I do love about Finland, and maybe I can also talk about that in another video, things I love about living in Finland, and then follow up with things that I fucking hate. It's all about balance, baby.
But yeah, I think that's everything for this time.
Thanks for watching, and if you want more videos about life in Finland and what things I love about Finland, things I don't like about Finland, or just my opinion on Finland in general, let me know in the comments so I can start working on videos like that for y'all. As always, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye bye.
Hey!